I was here in Nevada, not here, but I was 4 years ago running all over your state, talking to people. And 4 years ago, the ideas that I introduced into the political debate at that point were seen by the establishment media, by the establishment political class as radical and extreme ideas. Some of you may remember that. All right, people said, nobody, Bernie's a nice guy or he's not a nice guy, but his ideas don't make sense to anybody. Now, 4 years ago, I want you to remember the ideas that I talked about, which were seen to be crazy and radical. I said that if you work 40 hours a week, you should not live in poverty. We should raise the minimum wage to a living wage, $15 an hour. Remember that? Well, 4 years ago, that was a radical idea. Well, guess what's happened since? 7 states have passed legislation raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, and the U.S. Congress will likely do the same within the next couple of months. 4 years ago, I said that we have a crumbling infrastructure, that is our roads and our bridges and our wastewater systems and our water systems. We should invest $1 trillion and create 15 million decent paying jobs. And people say, $1 trillion, that's so much money. That's what everybody is talking about now. And that is exactly what we have got to do. This is America. Our roads and our bridges should not be collapsing. Now, 4 years ago, I said that, maybe 50, 60 years ago, if you graduated high school, you can go out and make it into the middle class. You didn't need a higher education. But what I said 4 years ago is that the world and the economy and education and technology have all changed. And that for the young people of this country today, if they're going to make it into the middle class, if they're going to get a decent job in a competitive global economy, they need, regardless of their income, a higher education or technical training. And that's why I proposed the idea of making public colleges and universities tuition-free and substantially reducing student debt. Okay? 4 years ago, that was a radical idea, not so radical anymore. 4 years ago, you had folks out there, Republicans, and I have to tell you, to be honest, some Democrats, talking about cutting Social Security. Now, I want you all to know, which I suspect you already do, that when you see somebody on television telling you, we need entitlement reform, you all know what they're talking about. Okay. They're talking about cuts to Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And a number of years ago, I helped form a caucus in the United States Senate called the Defending Social Security Caucus. All right? Because I know and you know that in Nevada and in Vermont and all over this country, there are people 80, 85, 90 years of age who are trying to survive on $12,000, $13,000, $14,000 a year Social Security. And my God, I have no idea in the world how anybody at 85 or 90 can survive on $12,000, $13,000, or $14,000. But there are millions of folks who are trying to do that. So no, I helped lead the fight in the United States Senate to say very clearly, no, we are not going to cut Social Security. We're going to expand Social Security benefits for those who need it. And we do that by lifting the cap on taxable income. All right? So right now, Right now, you got somebody who's making $10 million a year, somebody who's making $100,000 or $160,000 a year. They're both paying the same amount into Social Security because there's a cap. You can't tax income above a certain level. Okay, we're going to lift that cap starting at $250,000. Small number of people will pay the same percentage of their income in taxes as somebody making $80,000 a year. And when you do that, you can raise benefits and extend the life of Social Security for another 50 years. Okay? And then there's another issue that I have been working on for a very, very long time. And that is taking on the greed and in many cases the illegal behavior of the pharmaceutical industry in this country. Last year, the 10 major companies in America, hold your hats here, 10 major companies in America made $69 billion in profit. 10 companies, $69 billion in profit. And you know how they managed to make so much money? Because they are charging you by far the highest prices in the world for prescription. Do you all know that? All right, I want to tell you a story. Way back when I was representing Vermont in the U.S. House, back in 1999, I think, I took a busload of women from northern Vermont, from the St. Albans area, Franklin County, who were dealing with breast cancer. These were mostly working class women dealing with breast cancer. And we took about an hour and a half trip up to Montreal, Canada. You know why we went to Montreal, Canada? It wasn't for a sightseeing tour. Why did we go? All right, this is what happened. And then we had arranged all of this stuff beforehand. And I'll never forget this. One of these things, that stays in your mind. We went into this pharmacy in Montreal, and these were women, working class women who were struggling with breast cancer. No easy thing to deal with. Walked into the pharmacy, and a widely prescribed breast cancer called tamoxifen, okay? They went in there, they purchased that same bottle, same damn thing, for 1/10 of the price they were paying in Vermont. 1/10 of the price. Okay. Now, out of that trip, I was the first member of Congress to do something like that. Other members did it, senators did it. And today, there are millions of Americans who, unfortunately, are having to buy their medicine online or even visiting other countries to buy the medicine they need. In the United States of America, we should not be forced to pay the highest prices in the world. We should not be in a situation, listen to this if you can believe it. Today, 1 out of 5 Americans who walks into a doctor's office and gets a prescription for their illness cannot afford to fill that prescription. Today in America, and many of you may have had this experience, people walk into the pharmacy and the price of your medicine is doubled. And you say, well, why is it doubled? And the answer is they can double it, they can triple it, they can do anything they want because there is no legislation to control them. And the reason for that deals with the broader issue of a corrupt political system in which big money interests dominate what goes on in the United States Congress and in legislatures all over this country. All right? So imagine that. You have people dealing with diabetes, dealing with cancer, dealing with heart, dealing with Alzheimer's, dealing with all of the terrible illnesses that people are coping with. And these companies who are making unbelievable profits, who are paying their CEOs outrageous compensation packages, they can raise their price to any level they want. Now, we have three approaches that we are going to use to substantially lower prices in this country. First one is pretty easy. It says that Medicare should negotiate prices with the pharmaceutical industry. Now, you got a pricing system in the pharmaceutical world which is so Byzantine, ain't nobody understands it. Every hospital pays a different price. Medicaid pays a different price than Medicare. Medicare pays a different price than the VA. In fact, the VA, Veterans Administration, has for years negotiated prices with the companies. That is why their prices are the lowest in the country. And that's what we have to do with Medicare. Second area that we can make some progress is I am not a great believer in unfettered free trade. I should tell you that because I think it has hurt working people a whole lot. But if we are importing products from all over the world, do not tell me that we cannot safely import low-cost prescription made by the same exact manufacturer from Canada or the UK or France. Of course we can. Distributors and pharmacists can do that, and they can resell those products at a substantially lower price. The third area, which is probably the simplest, and kind of what Canada does right now, is to, and we've introduced legislation to do this, which simply looks at what other countries around the world are paying. That's all. And we determine and we tell the companies, this is what you will receive. And if we do that, and I will do that, we will lower the cost of prescription in this country by half. By half. Cut it in half. Now, you may think that that is a radical idea. It is not a radical idea because that's what people all over the world are already paying. So that's what we're going to do, and I think we're going to save a lot of lives when we do that. Just a few more points. I want to talk about the economy. The economy today has very low unemployment. That's good. When Obama came in 2010, after that horrible, horrible Wall Street crash, unemployment was 10%. By the time he left, it was down to 4.5%. That was real progress under difficult times. Today, it is even lower at 3.5%. That's good. And you got Trump saying, oh, the economy is booming, it's doing very well. It ain't doing so great for ordinary Americans. You got half of the people in this country are living paycheck to paycheck. You know what that means, paycheck to paycheck? I grew up in a family that lived paycheck to paycheck. I know what that means. And it means if you're a worker in Nevada or Vermont and your car breaks down and you need a $500 repair, well, you know what? If you don't have that $500, you can't get to work. And if you can't get to work, what happens? You get fired. If you get fired, you can't take care of your kids. There are people all over this country today who are sick. You know, they're feeling ill. They feel ill week after week, month after month. They're afraid to go to the doctor. You know why? Because they're going to find out that they have a terrible illness. They're going to have to go to the hospital, and they cannot afford to pay a $50,000 or $100,000 hospital bill. This is the wealthiest country in the history of the world. Half of our people should not be forced to live paycheck to paycheck. 40% of older workers in America, 55 years of age or older, you know how much money they have in the bank as they await retirement? Zero. Scared to death. What happens when they're 65 and they lose their jobs? Meanwhile, while the middle class for 40 years has been shrinking, anybody here know how much the average worker in America today makes in real inflation accounted for dollars compared to what he or she made 43 years ago? Anyone know? The same thing. So you know why people are angry? They're angry because after 43 years of an huge explosion of technology, increase in worker productivity, they're going nowhere in a hurry, and they are very worried about their kids. All right, and you know why they're worried about the kids? Because they should be worried about their kids. because for the first time in the modern history of this country, our younger generation, if we do not turn it around, will likely have a lower standard of living than their parents. Meanwhile, while the middle class struggles, while we got 40 million people living in poverty, the top 1% owns more wealth than the bottom 92%. The wealthiest 3 families in America own more wealth than the bottom half of the American people. Got that? This is more wealth inequality than at any time since the 1920s. And today in America, while people are working 2 or 3 jobs to pay the bills, 49% of all new income goes to the top 1%. And the reason that the rich get much richer is that they don't put their money under the mattress. They invest it in politics, which is why, by the way, if elected president, I will do everything I can to overturn that disastrous Supreme Court decision on Citizens United. I may be old-fashioned, but I believe that democracy is one person, one vote, not billionaires buying. Last point I want to make. 4 years ago, when I was in Nevada and all over this country, I said what at that point seemed to be a radical idea. But that idea turns out not to be so radical. And it is that health care is a human right, not a privilege. The United States, as many of you may know, is the only major country on earth that does not guarantee health care to all people as a right. And the result of that in our dysfunctional health care system is that today 34 million Americans have no, and far more than that are underinsured with high co-payments and high deductibles, which means that even if you have insurance, you still don't go to the doctor when you should because you can't afford the deductible or the co-payment. Meanwhile, and it's important that we all understand this as we debate health care, the United States spends twice as much per person on health care as do the people of any other country. So let me say it again. 34 million uninsured, even more underinsured. We pay the highest prices in the world for prescription. And at the end of all that, we end up spending as a nation twice as much per person on health care as any other major country, all of whom guarantee health care to all people. And that is why 4 years ago, I began the discussion to finally bring a Medicare for all single-payer program to the United States of America. And I want to say one last word on Medicare. Medicare is a very strong program. Medicare is a popular program, but Medicare is not a perfect program and has to be improved. Right now, Medicare for seniors, people 65 or older, does not cover dental care. Am I right? It does not cover hearing aids. Am I right? Does not cover eyeglasses. The Medicare for All proposal that we have introduced will cover dental care, eyeglasses, and hearing aids. So let me just conclude by saying this. We are living in an unprecedented moment. So our job is to bring our people together. Our job is to fight for economic, social, and environmental justice.